Hi and marhaba once more. I am Dr. Rasoub Sharif and I hope you've had a chance to watch my introduction to this YouTube channel which I call The Story of the Middle East. And before I take you into a journey into the Middle East ancient civilizations, now in this episode 1, I'm going to explain to you what's the Middle East and the origins of this name, its location, its countries, and its historical importance. So let's tell the story. The Middle East is actually the cradle of civilizations, and at the same time, it's the graveyard of civilizations because all these civilizations perished in the Middle East. Where is the Middle East, if you have no idea? It's actually part in Africa, part in Asia. It's almost in the middle of the world. Which countries are included in the Middle East? Follow me, follow the borders. So we can include Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, and then all the Arabian countries in the Arabian Peninsula, the Arabian countries, what's in the Levant, the Iraq and the Middle East, the Arab countries in Africa, and we carry on. Even all the Arab countries, the 22 countries can be included in the Middle East. If you hear TV channels, if you watch TV channels or news channels, they refer to all Arab countries as the Middle East. But where did the Middle East term come from? Before it was the Near East, in medieval times and while the British were ruling India. The term was popularized by an American strategist named Alfred Mahan around 1850. In ancient times, let's say around 7,000 before Christ, before the Common Era, the Middle East was referred to as the Fertile Crescent because it was a very prosperous area and it was the cradle, the birthplace of civilization. It included Mesopotamia, nowadays Iraq, and Assyria, which is nowadays Iraq, nowadays Syria, and the Levant here, which included Lebanon and Palestine, and ancient Egypt. Because it looked like a crescent, it was called the Fertile Crescent. The Levantine, the Levant, which is Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and Palestine, is part of the Fertile Crescent, and they had their own ancient civilizations as well. What comes to your mind when you hear the Middle East? Destruction, refugees, war, and then these fighters called in the West jihadists, Islamist jihadists, they terrified us for a while. The Middle East in some places in recent times looked like the destroyed Europe in World War II. But history started in the Middle East. It's the place of civilizations, innovations, and inventions were born here in the Middle East. So what did the Middle East contribute to the world? It contributed so many things like agriculture, stable food, the first form of government, the writing system. They invented the alphabet. In the Middle East, they domesticated animals, camel, donkeys, dogs. They invented the wheel. They controlled rivers to grow crops. They fashioned tools and weapons. The first legal system, law system, was introduced in the Middle East. They introduced wheat and barley. So many things, and we see calendar and so on, were invented in the Middle East in ancient times. It's also the cradle of main religions. Christianity, which represents around 34% of the world population, was born here. Muslims and Islam, which represent around 24 and more, was born here. And Judaism, which is one of the main religions, was born in the Middle East. Even all the prophets for the three religions that are believed in by the three religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, were all born and they started their mission and their messages here from Adam to Muhammad. Peace be upon him. The Arabian Peninsula, which is believed to be the beginning of mankind. It's part of the Middle East, where it's believed that Adam and Eve met here in the Middle East after they fell from heaven. So Muslim pilgrimage every year, they go to Mount Arafat in Saudi Arabia to commemorate. Here they go to Saudi Arabia and they go to Arafat. Muslims believe it is the place where Adam and Eve reunited on earth after falling from heaven. It is the place where Adam was more forgiven and Satan was condemned. Let me ask you this question. Have you heard of the story of Noah and his ark and the great flood? If you haven't, let me give you an idea. In the Quran and the Bible, his people, this is in the ancient time, rejected him, and they were sinful people. They rejected many times that God decided to destroy them, and he sent his great flood. But Noah actually was ordered to build a ship, and he carried on his ship his followers, birds and animals, and this is how he and God maintained the human race. Actually, recently, it's believed, it's claimed that Noah's Ark remains were found on Mount Ararat in Turkey here. It's very far from Istanbul. According to National Geographic, a team of evangelical Christian explorers claimed they found the remains of Noah's Ark beneath snow, and it is on Mount Arafat. And this even was published in 2010 in Fox News. So if you are going to Turkey, make it as one of your stops. So Sumer and Egypt, the first civilizations in history, were born here in the Middle East. Well, to understand history, you need to understand the ancient Roman calendar and Jesus' birth. The Roman calendar consisted of 10 months, and they were named, these are the names, and I'm not going to read them, but we are familiar with October, November, and December. And Christians believe that Jesus was born on 25th December, while Muslims believe he was born in the summer in August and September. So how do we interpret dates? First, you need to know what we mean by our calendar, which we use now is the Gregorian calendar, with reference to Gregory, a priest who completed this calendar, which we use now, the calendar 2019. And we need to know the acronyms when we say before Jesus' birth. So you understand Jesus' birth was the date, very important date, and we say BC, before Christ, and BCE. So all the ancient civilizations I'm talking about, most of them except the Romans came before BC, and they finished before BC, before Common Era. But after his birth, we say AD, which means Anno Domini, or CE, or Common Era, or Christ Era. I think so. Let's take an example. For Alexander the Great invaded Persia in 334 BC. That was before Christ. The second example, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was born in 570, the year 570 AD. That means after Christ, or CE, Christ era. And then the Prophet migrated to Medina in 622. So 622 started the AH Anno Hijri, which is Anno Hijri in Latin, in English, Anno Hijri, Al-Hijra al-Nabawiyya. So the Hijri calendar started, so the Muslim calendar started in 612 with the Prophet migrating to Medina. So, and that was AD date, of course. More explanation, here is for you, please, more explanation about how to use, how to understand, interpret date. So AD is year 1 in our calendar, Gregorian year, right? While 622 here is the first year of Hijra year, which is now 1440. But before that is BCE, right? While after the birth of Christ is AD or CE. So let's give you an example. Sumerians, for example, the ancient civilization which I'm going to be talking about, they lasted from 4000 to 1990 BC, which means before the birth of Christ. And you can see the number descends from higher to lower. While if we have an example of AD, for example, Muslims ruled Spain from 712 to 1445 for about 700 years. So, and that is AD. We cannot call it an ancient civilization. It's somehow an old civilization, but it's AD from 712 to 1445. I hope you understand that. This is very important. So this is the end of episode 1 about what is the Middle East and why it's important. Our next episode will be about the first civilization in history, which is the Sumerian. Bye for now. Hope to see you in episode 2.